Hello, my friends on the Phil's Bosses group. I hope you're doing well. It's just a check-in to make sure that you are doing exactly what you said you would before you got certified. In other words, you said, I'll practice this stuff. I'll use it. I'll do it to the best of my ability. Well, let's start off going through the knowledge areas. Do you ensure each project is chartered and you've got a project management plan? Do you make sure that you are factoring in schedules, no matter how elaborate they are? You could have a 10-line long schedule that drives you to success. It doesn't have to be 100 lines long, but are you thinking about schedule? Let's even reverse back into the garage before we move out. Let's talk about scope. Are you effectively scoping out the project? Do you consider using a WBS? You do know that a WBS doesn't take hours and hours and hours to develop all the time. Now, could it? Absolutely. We've had full 1 day workshops doing nothing but WBS creation with our clients, but that's not the point. The point is, do you work with a team on breaking down work into smaller, more manageable pieces using a WBS as a possibility? If not, I want to encourage you, you should use a work breakdown structure. Even if it's a 10, 15-minute discussion, understand the breakdown of work, understand the flow of work. It helps. Someone says, well, I'm on a 4-hour project. Nonetheless, you can spend 2 to 3 minutes thinking about the breakdown of work. So always think breakdown of work. What makes sense? What should I be doing? How do I break this down into smaller, more manageable chunks? And just scale it, scale your WBS. And then think about schedules, like I said. Build a 10-line long schedule, or maybe use a Kanban board. These are things I expect you to take and use. If you're not using a Kanban board and you're working as a project manager on personal stuff, you should, because there's value in it. It helps you. I've said it all the time. Use a WBS. When I was writing 12 books, I didn't use a Microsoft Project Schedule. Instead, I used a Kanban board. Why? Because it's right there in your face and it helps you see what is happening and what is not. It helps you see what is in progress. It helps you understand what you are waiting for. And it makes you think, what do I need to do to get this thing to done? So think about agile as well. Going into the area of cost, think about cost. Do it in a dynamic fashion where possible. Be agile with it. Think about quality, fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction. Think about the cost of quality. Think about how you can bake quality into your processes, if not already. Think about how agile processes leverage quality right there in the process, things like Scrum. So when we have our retrospectives or we have our sprint review, all of that stuff is quality. What about the backlog refinement? Or what about taking a look at what is coming down the pike that you're not doing right now, but you could possibly be doing that's coming down the pike? That's quality. You're prioritizing, right? It has to be something that makes sense and adds value to the customer. That's quality, right? Think about resources, physical resources, and think about the team. Are you being a servant leader or are you being a draconian leader? Are you being someone who decentralizes leadership, or are you a leadership hog trying to hog all the power and authority? No, let it be decentralized as much as possible. I know there are going to be some organizations where you cannot, but where possible, use delegation, use the concept of decentralized management, decentralized leadership, decentralized decision making. This is what great project managers should do. Going into communications, also consider it. How are we going to communicate on the project? What are the lines of communication? Where should we cordon off communications? Where should we make a ground rule that says all communications of this nature should go through this route? Sometimes you do that to stem the tide, because before you know it, everyone is communicating with every stakeholder under the sun in ways that are not helpful for the project. Indeed, business people and developers should work together daily throughout the project, but there are certain communications that should not be encouraged on a project by project basis. So we might need to stem some of those outlets. Again, it's thinking, what should I do to make the most of the communications management knowledge area? What about risk? My goodness, you should be thinking about risk right from the get-go. You should be looking at overall project risk. You should be looking at risk from an organizational level. You should be looking at risk from a portfolio level, a program level, a project level, a task level, and different entities are responsible for these things. So portfolio managers, program managers, but at a project manager level, we're taking a look at what could affect the overall project, what could affect tasks on the project, and we should be taking actions for both positive risks and negative risks. Going over to procurement, you want to make your contracts as flexible as possible. You want to make them as effective and efficient as possible, thinking about collaboration versus negotiation. And when you think about flexible contracts, you could have a master services agreement, and then you can have smaller, tinier contracts. You could have smaller pieces of scope on a line item by line item basis instead of locking people into one big monster contract. And then there's no out when you get to a point and they no longer would realize value from that item. They can't strike it off. That shouldn't be our MO. Instead, we want to allow people to have an out from a contract that is no longer valuable, a line item that is no longer valuable. The customer should be allowed to drop off that line item, for example. Moving to the final one of stakeholder. My goodness, what can I say about stakeholder? Stakeholder management, so important. In fact, I love thinking about this as stakeholder engagement because you're managing the engagement. You're not managing the stakeholder. You're managing the stakeholders' engagement. So think about it like that. But the question is, are you identifying stakeholders? Are you identifying them and analyzing them? And are you engaging stakeholders the most proactive way possible, the most sensible way possible to give the most value, to make it the most efficient? Because not every stakeholder should be focused on the same way. Some stakeholders have a low level of power, low level of interest. You just monitor those folks. But those that have a higher level of power, higher level of interest, deal with them accordingly. Okay, just remember that quadrant. These things are there to help you, not in a robotic, mechanical fashion, but it's just common sense. So always weigh stakeholder engagement. Endeavor to carry out a survey to ask stakeholders questions that help you understand if you're engaging them the right way. Is it overkill in how you're communicating? Is it at the right level? Are you bringing them in at the right level in the right way? These are things I expect you as PMPs to be thinking about. All right. So if you haven't been thinking about these things on your projects, I want you to step up your game. If you are in the Phil's Bosses group, step up your game. I expect this from you. I expect great things from you. I expect to be hearing reports of, hey, I was the project manager of the year. You know what I mean? And if you're not a project manager by title, that's okay. Let's make sure that you practice these knowledge areas in a sensible fashion, in an agile fashion. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. I wish you all the very best. Those of you who got certified in the past year, more power to you. Those of you who've been certified for a while, hey, I expect you to be mentoring, coaching, and helping other people to get certified. I expect you to be bringing people in to learn the way you did, especially if you found value from it. All right, you take care. Bye for now.